Okay, I think we can start. Hello, Mingla Bakanya. Hello, good day, everybody. Welcome to Myanmar Private Equity and Venture Capital Association Fireside Chat, or as the cool kids would call it, MPE&VCA. My name is Thura Sopai. I'm one of the co-founders of All Myanmar Advisors, and we do primarily investment and corporate advisory work in Myanmar. It's quite interesting that we've done a lot of sort of work on the full 360 during COVID. We've worked on, as investors ourselves, worked on a buy-side advisory, have done some independent valuation on behalf of the entrepreneur and the company. We've actually assisted an investee in sort of getting the deal done, and have even started fundraising for one of the entrepreneurs as well. So the full spectrum there. One of the things we've sort of noticed since COVID started is that there's a lot more certainty in what's going on. In the sense that we know that the businesses that have thrived or that COVID has been a catalyst for them to really sort of take off. Some businesses that have been able to pivot in order to survive and progress during these hard conditions. And those that will definitely return. They're just having to keep their heads down above water until the virus goes away and things return to normal. So, for example, restaurants, people will go back to restaurants. It's just a matter of when. And unfortunately, there are those that will not be able to survive this crisis that we have. So today's topic, investing during COVID, the rich pickings from the inbound and outbound opportunity set. So what I'll do is I will now hand over to our keynote speaker, Trent Eddy, Secretary of MPE&VCA, and one of the board members as well. So over to you, Trent.
Thanks, Tura, and on behalf also of the board of the association, welcome everyone. Thank you all for participating, especially in these challenging times when you have already done 10 Zoom calls this week. I was going to do a sort of a hands up if this is your first Zoom call for the week, but I'm not sure it would be helpful. It seems we have a great turnout. I can't see how many people have yet dialed in, but at least in terms of registrations, we were about 100 people registering for the event. I think about 35 representatives of the association's membership, and then a large number of additional participants from really across the whole PE/VC ecosystem, as we like to call it: funds, service providers and advisors, accelerators, company representatives, a few members of a few portfolio company members, banks, development partners, government representatives, and great to see also even some students. So a really diverse mix, and given the association's mandate to help to develop and promote that ecosystem, it's very rewarding to see that level of interest, and perhaps some others will watch the recording later. Thanks also to Tura and our speakers today, Nantibo and Paimintwe. I'll leave those introductions to later. I just wanted to give, I don't want to take up too much time, but just wanted to give a little bit of background to the nature of these chats. It's an interesting title. And just the background to how we got to it, and noting that very diverse audience that we have, I thought just to go back a little bit and establish a common background for it. And that is, in spite of the challenges that we all know of 2020, Myanmar it continues to be seen by people like those in this Zoom as offering great investment opportunities. And what we see PE and VC deals are being done in spite of all, obviously also some corporate and other transactions. And so the sort of the crux of things today is just, given the challenging environment we know about, how is this happening? And has there been a change in approach to enable it? I guess we know some of them, but how have some of the recent deals in the headlines got done? And I guess that's where we get some lessons and some interest today. So just to back up a bit around why Myanmar was attractive as a destination in the first place. There's plenty written and reported on it, but I just, for expediency, did a straw poll of the board members of the association for their thoughts on what for them underpinned what is a quite vibrant PE/VC sector developing in Myanmar. And we came up with a list that's pretty familiar to you all mostly. Obviously GDP, population size, and high growth, and hence good end market and consumer markets make the country even of interest to some who are not particularly Myanmar focused. And I know the other markets I operate are in at different stages to Myanmar, but somewhat smaller, and I think that size makes a big difference. Critically, opportunities from the regulatory opening up, improving investment climate and regulations. This is going way back to telecoms, which arguably started that off and perhaps started the PE sector off. But now we see insurance and banking underway, and other sectors one thinks will come. And all of this opening up and this size and this growth led to a range of new businesses and services that investors like us saw could be rolled out. And an implicit sort of pent-up financing gap that's arisen over many years historically that could be profitably addressed. Among these, the potential of e-commerce is just one example. I saw a statistic, digital commerce segment transactions are projected to reach something like 850 US million in 2020 and to grow at 17% in the next few years. And even in that hot sector that I'm not super involved in, that seems like a good path. And then not to be underestimated, curiosity and interest in what is a relatively new market, a market opening up, and that attracts individuals like a number of the people in this chat from the investment sector and elsewhere. And I think that's not something to be underestimated. There is a fascination for what's been happening here over the years. And so I guess if we look at where we are in 2020, in spite of the situation confronting us today, most of those elements are still in place. It's still a good environment as it was in 2019 for those of us who chose to come here then. GDP population, obviously the size is still there. Growth is set back, but forecast to recover. I think the ADB forecast 6% growth again in 2021. As with many countries, there's to be a rebound whenever it is that COVID does come to an end. In the recent election, obviously the NLD increased its vote, which I think validates for us a continuing mandate of the transformation and the regulatory improvements that drive those deal opportunities that I mentioned. And anecdotally, at least, Myanmar news is still some of the most sought after in the periodicals that cover the country. It's still fascinating investors and others alike, and perhaps the diversity of and number of people in this Zoom is testament also to that. But on the downside, of course, some immediate impacts on end market downturn, to a mentioned restaurant sector, of course, and perhaps operational challenges affecting a lot of sectors, staffing, supply chains, distribution, other sectors taking advantage of it. But so largely, you'd say those of us investing here see the opportunities as intact. And I think that's reflected that there's still the desire to do deals. People haven't sort of shut up shop in the investment sector. Pre-Quinn, the association's new data partner, talks about how in similar times to these, there's been a relative proliferation of GPs, fund managers and the like in the market. So those of us who are doing it all have a motivation to keep putting money to work, as in turn do our investors, our LPs. And going to something that Drew mentioned and we spoke about just before the call, it's often said that there are good deals to be done by PE and VC firms. We've called them in our title rich pickings during crises, during difficult times. But whether because they need to shore up cash resources that have been depleted a little, or perhaps they see an upside opportunity, I think entrepreneurs, business people are still coming and talking to the full members and the associate members of the association pursuing potential investments. And so when we say there are good deals to be had or rich pickings, they are nevertheless still win-win deals. And I think that's an important thing to bear in mind. We're not all about distress or rescue. There's still opportunities. And so arising from all of that, I guess we see there is still deal activity, quite a number of deals. Our hardworking team, Juliet and Kun at the association office, collate transaction data from member inputs and from publicly available sources. It's not maybe comprehensive, it's not fully complete, but it's a good basis. On that basis, we had about 20 MPE&VCA deals recorded in 2019. And we had about 15 up to year to date, mid-October, which if we annualize, we get to about 18. So pretty stable in spite of all that's going on, I would say. And that's covered seed and early, small growth stage VC stuff that's been closed even as recently as Q3. I think EME, one of our members, concluded 4 deals in 2020, UMG, another 3, just as examples. And the larger deals are also have still been happening in recent times. Delta and Daiwa into commercial plastics. I think that was 4.6 mil. Ascent in Frontier, obviously another large deal. GIC Norfund in Yoma Bank, it's a different kind of deal perhaps, but very validating, I think, of both the company and the sector. And also there's some traction on the fundraising side, most recently with Ascent against closure of its Myanmar-focused fund. Others, including ourselves, are well into the process. Everyone, knock on wood, including via some virtual DD to get that done. So stuff is still happening. And that gets us to today, and I think what we may touch on is, given the calamitous year we are otherwise having, how are these deals getting done? It can be hard to visit at times, hard to move around within Myanmar at certain times over recent months, inhibiting site visits. Parts of the team, I think a nice thing about the Myanmar market is that we have a lot of funds in country, Myanmar-focused funds, and have team on the ground, but still team members may be overseas and struggling to return. And then commercial DD outcomes, to the extent that you can do them even virtually, are obviously affected by the end market situation, among other things. What implications for valuation? So that's the sort of setup to today, I guess. We've got 2 guys in who just recently pulled off deals, and I'm going to leave it to introduce them and discuss a couple of inbound and outbound deals that have got done recently, and what we can all, potential investees as well, learn from those. Thank you. Over to you, Tura.
Thank you, Trent. Okay, everybody, and actually we have everybody on right now, so we have all of 53 participants, so it's a pretty good turnout. Welcome again, everybody. So just before we kick off with the fireside chat with our colleague and friend from Delta, just a couple of housekeeping matters. Please do ask questions and comments on your chat box, and please do say who you are. We are all here, you can see us, like it or not. So it'd be quite nice to see who is getting the questions, who we're getting the questions from. And also at the end of it, Juliet will be sending out a short survey questionnaire of how we can make things better. Maybe we can be the new David Rubenstein of Myanmar. We'll see. So without further ado, I'll move to the first chat, and that's with Bai Min Tui from Delta Capital. Bai has sort of I think he's been with Delta for quite a few years now. And what I'd like to sort of talk with Bai is really on the sort of deal sourcing and during COVID, as well as DD process during COVID, how they were able to complete a deal in October, I believe, with Myanmar Plastic Recycling, or whatever, Myanmar Plastic Company. So over to you, Bai. Please make a short introduction, then we can have a chat going. Yeah.
Sure. Thank you, Kudurai. Happy to be here and then sharing what we did through the COVID period. So your question regarding this impact on the deal sourcing. So as we all know, Myanmar is not a high volume deal market, and it really takes time to develop an investment opportunities, and it may even take more time for the deal to materialize. So for Delta, we've been investing since 2013, and we made 9 investments since then. We built networks and the team to really source for deals, and now we definitely see more companies coming to us, either through intermediary companies or the company themselves. So under the normal circumstances, our deal sourcing channels would be the team's network, either professional or personal network, or we sometimes do our industry top-down approach where we scan the sector, we look at the subsector, and then we try to bag the leaders in these subsectors. And also sometimes we see, interesting company or interesting management-led business that is interesting, and we follow them, and then we see whether the sector is interesting for us. and then we try to structure around that. So that would be the bottom-up approach. And of course, a lot of deals recently also come through from intermediaries like consulting firms and financial advisors and even law firms sometimes. So with COVID-19, definitely things have changed. The way we source for deals has also changed slightly. We definitely see fewer deals in the market since COVID started, because people are more on the defensive side and try to make sure that their business can endure this COVID-19 rather than focus too much on the deal or fundraising side. But we still see some investment across different sectors during this year. But for Delta, we sort of focus mostly on the investment opportunities that we have sourced prior to COVID-19. So we really worked a lot more, and we emphasize more on trying to close the pipeline deals that we have sourced prior to the period. And it's really hard to build relationship out there with all the COVID restrictions and all. It's hard to go out there, build the relationship or knowledge of the sectors, which in Myanmar, we require a lot of field work, not just the desktop research. So for us, we focus more on what we have, and we focus less on the sectors that we are less familiar with. And we will wait and see how things go until things settle.
It's interesting that you sort of brought out this relationship building, right? Because in Asia and I guess more so in Myanmar than most of Asia, it's a very relationship driven community, right? Especially and it's even more so with when it comes to private equity and venture capital, because you are essentially sharing risk and rewards together, right? Yeah. And how have you guys been able to find sort of dealing with the principals on both sides, right? Because I believe most of your directors are out of country, and even the principals of the businesses are probably not able to come and visit you guys. So how have you been able to sort of bypass that?
That's a very interesting question. I mean, we've been on the ground for 7 years now. So we have built the network as I mentioned earlier. So we were able to leverage on all the networks that our bosses have built over the years, and then we have to tap into that. So that's how we've been mostly present on the ground. So that's definitely one. And then on the other side, as I said, during this COVID time, it is hard to make new relationships out there. So we have always, over the years, we've scanned the sectors, we've built relationships slowly throughout these. So we try to keep in touch with these people that we have built relationship throughout the years. So we always try to catch up with them and see how their businesses are doing. So we revisit the opportunities we see again and again and again. So sometimes for some of the deals that we did, it took 3 years to actually close, to actually finish the deals since the first day we started talking to them and the day that we closed. So I think it's important that, to have a history here, to really keep in touch with the industry players here. I think that's how we have to, build the relationship in Myanmar. It's not coming in a day or two. So
yeah. And in terms of sort of when you're looking at, you mentioned that all the deals that you've been working on have been in the pipeline pre-COVID, and now slowly, they're going through the pipeline. How, I mean, has your focus in terms of analyzing the deals and the emphasis shifted or pivoted a little bit? Where is there now more emphasis on anti-fragility, be sort of, be prepared for the next pandemic or climate change or whatever? Have you guys sort of put more of that in front and center, or is it still the fundamentals of the business are still the fundamentals, and these things are bonuses, so to speak?
I would say it would be the latter. So our fundamentals haven't really changed too much because of COVID. But of course, as you said, the ESG and all these the resilience to the crisis, I think these are definitely a plus. Being in a defensive industry, that would definitely be a plus. And earlier today, Trent also mentioned that sectors are going through a temporary setback at the moment. So we will definitely see rebounds. I mean, possibly very fast rebounds from some of the players. So our strategy remains really the same. We still focus on, industry players. We still focus on scalable businesses that can have high growth potential, which is run by strong visionary management, and then the businesses that have proven record. And of course, on the deal sizes, it has to be somewhere that we're comfortable with. So for us, it would be 5 to 15 million, and probably our sweet spot is about $10 million. So in that sense, we don't really see that much of change in the focus that we have. But of course, as you said, the plus, the characteristics that we would be happy to have would be, the good operating system, the IT systems, all these things, and then being defensive or showing resilience in COVID-19, and our front and center of the investment philosophy has always been the responsible investing and good ESG practices. So if the companies have those, those are definitely the ones that we would like to bet on.
Yeah, I mean, it's quite correct, right? Because rich pickings, it only becomes rich pickings once you've actually realized the investment, right? I mean, you may think you've got a good deal, but if there's no potential sort of movement down the road, and to that point, right? Where are you? Sorry, I just lost my train of thought there for a second. I mean, when it comes to sort of valuations and stuff, has there been much of a shift in where the figures you were talking about pre-COVID to during COVID? Is this still a negotiation, or have you been able to sort of price that in sort of further on down the road, or put in kickers for when they achieve targets?
Yes, that is also another big, interesting topic to talk about. I mean, for the two deals that we have, the two transactions that we've closed for Delta during this year, the valuation has been, for one of the deal, it has been set pre-COVID. So the DD and all happened and when the COVID happened. So we didn't revisit all the valuation numbers, of course. But the second deal, it was more of the investment in the PET recycling. It was more on a forward-looking basis. So the plastic, the factory has been running for a few years, but in terms of the skills that they currently have and the skills that we are trying to achieve with the investment is vastly different. So on that front, the investment opportunity side, the investment valuation side, we don't really take into account of too much of the COVID impact, because one is the sector itself, it's not too much impacted by COVID-19. We still see the demand coming in. The product that they produce has been one of the basic product that the whole world will still continue to produce and use. So we don't see major impacts on the investment that we made. But for sure, for some of the new investment that we look at now, the COVID is definitely there. The impact has to be taken into account. We need to run different scenarios, when and how the COVID, impact is going to subside, and when businesses can rebound. So those are certainly the scenarios that we have to build into our investment valuation and models.
Great. And because we do have as Trent mentioned earlier, we do have a great variety of spectrum of attendees today, right? From your colleagues in the PE and VC field to investees, right? And even some students. So on that, I mean, would you have any tips and advice to some of the guys who are looking to raise some funds? Have you guys, is there something that they should focus more on or less on? I mean, of course, the fundamentals are the fundamentals still, but should there be certain areas that they should be highlighting because of the situation that we're in?
Sure. I don't really see so much of an impact that comes from COVID. I mean, as you said, fundamentals are really important. COVID has definitely shaken the whole economy, but we believe that it is a temporary setback, and then we definitely see a momentum in the economic growth of Myanmar. And Myanmar has a lot of sectors that we have natural strengths in, like consumer or financial services or even technology and telecom. So a lot of the sectors have natural strengths in, and it has a high growth potential with a huge headroom for growth. So I think on the fundamental side, Myanmar is still a very attractive place for investments to come in, especially the private investments where, the market, we are still at a nascent stage. As for what we should look out for, I think it's important to be on the ground. So for new funds or new shops that are being set up, I think it is crucial for the team to be on the ground, because as we discussed earlier, relationship is also one of the most important matter in striking deals. And it's not just that. Making deal is the first step of it, and a lot of work actually comes in after making the deal. You have to monitor the process, and for PEs, we need to exit at a certain time. We need to build up the company. So in that sense, having the team on the ground is going to be very helpful. So I think that would be one of the most important advice that I could provide to whoever is raising funds.
Yeah, I think I'll be chatting with Alan about that in terms of monitoring and when you're doing it cross-border and post sort of investment integration, so to speak. We have a question here from Brandon. I don't think I know Brandon. Essentially asking about what are the challenges when this one's good for you, fine. What are the challenges when working with legacy and family-owned businesses in terms of completing deals and best practices for investors to overcome them? That's, wow. We could write a whole thesis on this, right?
Yeah. We could spend the whole hour talking about this. Yeah, it is very challenging. And to be honest, for Delta, we haven't really, we made 9 investments, but none of them we have invested in a company that has so much legacy issues, which we see very often in Myanmar, where the first generation owners, they've been doing the business for 20 years, 30 years, they know what they're doing. So it's really hard to change or make an influence on how they do the business. So it's really hard to strike deals with those businesses. For the investment that we've done, all of them are either relatively younger organization that have less legacy issues. Most of them are either repats coming back to Myanmar with a lot of international experience, or management that are basically foreigners and expat. So we have to, currently we are in that sector, definitely, but of course we want to really take the next level, and then how do we invest in those companies that relatively have more legacy issues. So there are definitely challenges, especially when we have a lot of more systems and processes we have to put in place for investments. It's not just about the money, it's not just about the financial returns, which a lot of Myanmar businesses tend to really prioritize. It is definitely important, but then having systems in place, having checks and balances in place is important. So sometimes we need to shift our attention towards having these in place, and that costs. So a lot of people are not really happy about these, but then we see those as opportunities. So we think having a bit of an investment in this here now will definitely have a much bigger return down the road. So that's why ESG has always been the front and center in our investment philosophy, and our one of the pillars of our investment thesis.
Okay, yeah, for Brendan, if you're out there, the short answer would be to hire people like All Myanmar Advisors. We can fix that problem for you. But all jokes aside, the key is to really, what you can do is to really cut out some of the bits that you don't want. So it's to really structure it in a way that you leave all the legacy bits out, and you just focus on a certain elements or parts of the business that you will want to work with, that are clean and that are fresh, or not all legacies are bad, right? Some legacies are good. So it's just to really work out which ones you want, and you have an SPV, which the local company inserts whatever that needs to be put in. And then we also have another question from Lynn. I think for that one, maybe I'll leave that to Alan to deal with, because we're talking about IPOs and all that sort of stuff. Do we have any more questions that are out there? Just bear with me a second. It's all this, virtual stuff is great, but sometimes you need to see the eyes and the whites of people's eyes. Okay, we have another one from Lynn. I guess, you can take this one. This is another how long is a piece of road question here. How much equity does an investor take in pre-season round? And I mean, I know you guys deal with much bigger sizes, and we don't actually have any VC on the panel today. It's again, I think, speaking from experience, it could be anything, or it depends on how much money you need, how much money you're looking to raise. My 2 pennies worth is that, Lynn, you try and get as far as you can by your own means, and then only raise external funding when you feel that you really need it, because at the earlier the stage you are, the more expensive the equity will be. Yeah. And if you can get some free money from the likes of all these wonderful donors like GIZ and stuff here, who's in this discussion, you should get some too. So let's how are we doing for time? I guess we're okay, right? So then let's have another chat then on the DD side of things, right? How were you, when you closed the deal on the plastic recycling side? How were you able to? Was most of the DD done? Were there certain things that you had to sort of change? And do you think some of these practices will exist post-COVID? Would that be part of the new norm?
Yeah, then with COVID, there has been so much changes in the way we do our due diligence, and probably most impacted out of our investment process. So DD has always been a combination of primary on-ground due diligence and secondary desktop research. But of course, Myanmar data is really scarce, and then hands-on, the on-ground due diligence is really required. So that's where we have to leverage our networks, in meeting many players in the industry to try to understand the challenges and the opportunities and get a really holistic view of the company's strength and where they can be improved. So with COVID-19, a lot of that is like gone. So we have to rely a lot more on virtual due diligence. So we do more desktop research. We have to do a lot more calls than physical meetings, and then we'd like to. And I just hear from you before this session that some of them are doing factory visits via drones and all. So that would be really cool, but we haven't done that yet. For our plastic recycling investment, we were sort of fortunate. We were able to travel around in Yangon. So my colleague and I just went around Yangon to visit a lot of plastic collection sites and trash sites, and that's a good experience. So we were able to do that, fortunately. But having said that, the number of visits that we did would have been higher if not for COVID. And some of the value chain, the people in the value chain, when we call up, they prefer to just have a call rather than a meeting. So the number would have been higher if not for COVID. So it's definitely impacts on the way we do the due diligence. And then since the second wave started, we couldn't travel anymore. So luckily, most of the due diligence stage has been completed before the second wave started. So for our recycling deal, it was okay. And the question on whether this will continue going forward after COVID, I think yes. On one side, for meetings, this can be replaced by calls. We believe that most of the physical meetings that we do will be replaced by calls. Of course, the physical element is going to lack there, but of course, and we think, relationship, as we said, is crucial. But on one hand, I think we can be much more efficient. We don't have to spend time in traffic and all. So I think that's a definitely huge bonus, and probably a silver lining of this COVID, where we don't have to do too much of travel. We can save a lot of costs as well.
Yeah. I think that's one thing that will come through. It's amazing how much we can do remotely. Yeah. It is very enriching, and we can get a lot of stuff done without actually having to get on planes and go to places. And I hope that is sort of reflected in some of the transaction costs that will happen in terms of, getting people to fly and to do DD. Yeah, no, it's quite funny that you said something about, visiting, trash collection sites. That's really the glamorous part of private equity, right?
Yeah. So you can sit in an air-conditioned place, a nice office, nice view, but sometimes you can find yourself in a dump site where you have to wear a mask because of the smell and all these. Yeah.
And the last one before I let you go, Brian, we have there's something that was in the news, of course, that Nick was out talking about your new Myanmar Opportunities Fund number 3, where you're looking to raise $100 million. So I know it would take a good while to raise that fund. Give us a little bit about the narrative around that.
Sure. I think Nick also consistently send the message across to whoever he speaks to. I think for us, we have been investing since 2013. We have a track record of investments. We have done numerous exits. In fact, we did 2 exits this year, partial exits this year during COVID. So I think so these are these track record would definitely help in terms of our fundraising process. And for our strategy, I wouldn't say we have changed at all. So we still have this fundamentals. Yes, there is temporary setback because of COVID, but now the election is not, the uncertainty about the election is also out of the way. I think there will be a lot more renewed interest in the country, and we will still continue to support Myanmar companies in the growth by providing this growth equity to the companies in the sectors where we believe are the fastest growing, and we believe there is a huge potential, like as I mentioned, consumer, financial services, technology, and lately we're looking at others like agriculture, and even some of the sectors that we've seen a lot of impact, like F&B or hotel and tourism. I think there will be rebounds, and we will be also opportunistic in those sectors as well. So our key focus has not really changed. We will continue to support the Myanmar companies by providing growth capital, but sometime we also will be looking into in other areas like consolidation play, because in Myanmar we see some of the industries where there are a lot of players. The market is quite fragmented, and we see smaller suppliers or businesses out there. With the consolidation, there could be a lot of efficiency gains and cost advantages that we can have from these. So we are starting to look into that. And also with our latest investment in the PET recycling facility, this is our first control deal. And this is also a reflection of how confident the team is on investing in country and also managing the portfolio in country. So we will also be expanding the mandates to these consolidation as well as the control aspect of deal execution.
Great, excellent, thank you. I think we can let you off on this one. I think this is you've taken enough of your time, and it's been great having you. Please do stay on, right? I think there might still be some questions that are coming in, which I might pull you in to do so.
I'll be here.
So great, thank you.
Thank you, Kotura. Happy to be here.
My pleasure. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce Alain, who is the COO of Myanmar Strategic Holdings and the CEO of Wall Street English. So I guess, Alain, when they're talking about the outbound element of it, it was with you, because that was in the news of Wall Street English, Myanmar acquiring Wall Street English Vietnam. So I'll be really curious to find out, and I guess the rest of the attendees as well, about how you were able to sort of close that during COVID, and also post deal of how you've been able to sort of implement any sort of integrations that needs to be done, and post takeover work that needs to be done. So we'll start with that.
Yes, sure. So basically, Myanmar Strategic Holdings has a consolidated portfolio of assets, and we are very hands-on. So what that means is that we have a very good control over our organization or processes or systems, and that enabled us to build scale. So we're here to grow, and we really want to leverage our operational capabilities to expand our portfolio as well as the size of the group. Now we opened a new center of Wall Street English in Mandalay back in February, and the goal was to open a fifth center in Myanmar after the one in Junction Square, Myanmar Plaza, St. John City Mall, and now Mandalay. And what we faced was a challenge of finding growth in Myanmar. For us to find a good location for a center that's going to be successful, there needs to be that location, and to have a catchment area that makes sense. And we're finding a little bit of struggle there because our capacity to grow was probably outpacing the speed of the market. In parallel to this, Wall Street English is a brand that is global. There's a whole network of franchisees globally. And not all franchisees has been as disciplined as we were in terms of building these capabilities, and we're starting to see that some other franchisees were struggling to keep their operations in control, and we could have this view from the inside as being part of the network, and we're seeing that there was an opportunity to bring our operational capabilities to Vietnam and create value with them. So the discussion started before COVID, as we were seeing this coming, and the discussion started probably in October, November 2019, where there's been some discussions that have been starting about how can we work together. We met with them over there. They met with us over here to exchange knowledge, and our assumption about our capacity to actually drive value in the operations was getting confirmed through the discussions we're having. But that being said, time was passing and COVID happened. And COVID happened where we all got locked down in our respective markets. But that accelerated the problems that Wall Street English Vietnam was having. So the discussion continued and actually got accelerated as the need for help was getting more and more urgent, and that really created the path for us to go to achieve an agreement with the owner of the franchise in Vietnam fairly fast. So all these discussions happened remotely. The due diligence happened remotely mainly. Started, if I remember well, probably the beginning of April, and the deal we came to an agreement towards the 20th of May approximately, and we took over the operations on the 27th of May, I think, if I remember well.
Okay, great. And sort of, I feel that there's a sense of sort of sticking to what you know, so to speak, where you don't want to, you are very familiar with the operations that is sort of on the educational sector, whether it's Wall Street English or the school, and sort of to expand on that seems to make a lot of sense, right?
Yeah, so it's a mix, right? So it's a mix of operational capabilities and knowledge of the business. So at the core, we're very good operators. So we're good at building a robust organizational structure for the business. For myself, I was not in the education sector 2 years ago. It was new to me. But I could understand what was needed, set up the organizational structure for it, look into the processes that were needed to drive the funnel, the acquisition down to the conversion at every level. And then look into what processes we needed from a service perspective. And then look into what system would be enabling us to support these processes, and then use business intelligence tool to monitor the activities that were flowing into the business. So this is how we work. And then, of course, the layer of understanding the business accelerates a lot of things, because we know exactly. And in the case of Vietnam, we actually replicated or we created a playbook. We documented our processes. We documented or built of our CRM, and we could replicate it for Vietnam. So that.
And were you able to? How did you find any sort of sort of a Myanmar company, so to speak, with a Vietnamese company? Did you find any challenges in terms of the cultural integration that happened? Were there challenges in terms of the mindsets of the management that is there? And I guess it's quite difficult, especially because you can't physically meet the guys who are running these franchises, right?
That's a very interesting question, because I've been in Southeast Asia for 11 years. I've been operating in different countries, and the aspect of culture comes every time. Oh, in our country, we are different. Of course, every country is different, but we also need to create our own corporate culture, and that's based on integrity. It's based on accountability, on support, caring for the colleagues. And that's very important, because that cuts the noise. From my perspective as an operator, I hear all sorts of stories, especially if we look in sales. Why don't we meet the numbers? We'll hear a different story to every people you talk, and often the excuse of, especially in marketing, actually, for why don't we work in marketing is because we don't understand the market. For me, that starts with a big V. And if we set up the right operation, we can measure what works, what doesn't work, adapt, change our decision and our content to actually be successful in a different market.
Great. And sort of moving forward to going back to the bridge picking side of things, right? Whether are you guys looking at any particular sector now for growth or investment in Myanmar? Do you feel that there are areas where you can really add great value and assist the local entrepreneur to grow?
Yeah, so leveraging what we have, I think we try to leverage what we have to begin with, because we can accelerate a lot of things. There's different ways we can grow. We can use the operating model that we have, for example, for Wall Street English, and expand it geographically. We could also expand it within the industry, right? Find how they can be complementarity in other assets that can be operated jointly, and create cross-selling or cross-value across the two business units. Or it could be leveraging the capabilities we have, for example, in marketing or business intelligence or data management, and go in a different industry. So what basically we're looking for opportunities where we can create value by leveraging or operational capabilities.
And your focus is on that, right? Getting where your value add would be on the operational side of things.
Yeah, pretty much, and that's actually what happened in Vietnam. I think that we saved a lot of jobs by coming and making the acquisitions, and we actually create value in the market. There's demand that would not be met if we were not coming as a supplier for the service. So that's
great. I'm going to ask you one question here, which has been sitting on my screen for a long time, and that's from Lynn, and it relates to exits, right? And as you are a listed company, maybe you can answer this one, right? What are the exits for Myanmar companies, the giant investors acquisition or IPO in neighboring countries? Can I know the possible exit from Myanmar companies? I know that's it really is dependent on the company itself. I think my little bit would be to say that it's horses for courses. By that, you choose the exit that is most suitable for you. It doesn't mean that IPOs are always the way to go for the business. And maybe it is, maybe it isn't, or trade sale. So what are your thoughts on that, Alan?
So Myanmar Strategic Holding is a listed company. So there's already a sort
exit.
Of exit there built in. But that being said, every asset can be a transaction depending on the objective of the investors. So it really depends on the objectives at stake, and find what is the right mechanic to achieve these objectives.
Yeah. And we've got, oh, this one is for you, man. So hi, Alain, could you share your views on outlook of smaller deals, 2 to 5 million in Myanmar, and the key challenges, time frame, and operating and turning them into a large leading player?
Well, interesting. Interesting question, actually. From our experience in Myanmar, a lot of the, if we look, we have business in the hospitality sector. Mainly, a lot of our assets, or a lot of our portfolio is in the education now, but we also have Ostelobello, which is in the hospitality sector, as well as Exera in the security sector, which Exera is the largest security company in the country, which was an acquisition in the case of Exera, but pretty much all of our other assets, we've built them ourselves. Because there's not a lot of opportunities to buy an asset and turn it around. That's why there's a lot of dry powder in the market. If the opportunities were there, everyone would find them. So there's not that much of these opportunities in the market. The market is fairly new if we look at the grand scheme of things, and a lot of the assets need to be built. Of course, in the case, for example, of Wall Street English, it got accelerated by being a franchisee. We didn't build a product from scratch. I would say that's a way to accelerate the setup of an operation.
Yeah, and I think, leading from that, right, is quite similar to what Trent was saying as well. Rich pickings not only exist for investors, but also potentially for entrepreneurs, where there is still a lot of money that is waiting to be deployed, not just in Myanmar, but I think globally, where there are a lot of investors that are looking at at investments. So that side of things, the pool doesn't dry up. So if you have the right business, if you have the right package, I think you can still get a good choice of investors that will be lining up to work with you. And one thing on you mentioned Ostelobello. I mean, how are you guys? I think this will be of interest to the guys, just to sort of the keeping your head down during the storm, so to speak, to emerge on a brighter day. I mean, how have you guys been able to sort of survive or change the way you've operated? Because I'm assuming you can't take any guests right now, right?
Yes, a very interesting question, and that's where having multiple verticals has been very helpful. Exera in the security sector has been doing very well during the COVID time, while Ostelobello on the other side has been put in sort of hibernation. So we want to be able to reinitialize it as soon as we can, but this is something that we don't control. So it's really a matter of protecting the asset and reducing the burn, while having the group living on the other verticals. So Exera going very well. Wall Street English has been able to move online in the two different lockdowns. So we had a lot of learnings to have during the first COVID. It's been a bit more rocky, but we've been able to turn it around and move online within 2 weeks. So that was pretty good. The second time we've been much faster, and we're still are much more robust in the second lockdown than the first one. Yangon American, which is our international school, I've been doing a lot of innovation to move online. So every day from 8 to 3, the kids are catered for with the school. Yeah. The teachers are in the country. So we haven't growing as fast as projected for Yangon American with the expat community that's been shrinking, but we've still been growing. Austin College, which is our engineering university, has been more disrupted because there's no matriculation test. It's been postponed. So the education sector in that area has been very, very disrupted. But again, we manage our costs lower, while in the same time in Vietnam, there's no COVID over there. So it's really a matter of turning the business around pretty fast to turn it cash flow positive, to continue to grow the value of the group.
Great, excellent. I think that we are actually sure if there are no. Let me just check to see if there are any more questions here that we can take from or comments. I mean, I'll welcome more questions, guys. Don't be shy. I think what we'll do, Alan, if it's all right with you, what we'll do is I'll ask, perhaps we can have a group chat here and ask, if Brian can join us as well, so we can all do more sharing. I think you're probably tired of hearing my voice. So it needs to be a change of sound. And so I guess the really sort of, if you for us now, right, three of us, if you take a step back now and sort of say, okay, there are, COVID it's finishing, right, so to speak. Even in Germany now, they're going to start vaccinating later on this month. In the UK, they're going to start vaccinating end of this week or something crazy like that. What do you think that there's been any lessons learned in terms of what you could do different next time, or if there is a next time around that when a crisis happens, that you're ready? I mean, we never thought that we should have, disaster recovery sites for people like us, but it seems that the home is a disaster recovery site where we can be up and running when we can't go to the office. So are there any sort of, hindsight, look backs I can say, man, we wish we could have done things differently or better, or that, we learned a lot?
I think I can take the question and then answer briefly on what we can do better next time. But I think, COVID definitely, as I said, the silver lining is really push us for digital transformation. And now we are more ready for the next round. We will be, more ready. We're more equipped with what we need if something similar happen again in the future. And hopefully this COVID gets over really soon. But I think it's still gonna take some time for Myanmar to be really, get back in shape. Even though the vaccines are there, but I think it will still take a bit of time to reach here. But I guess in the next round, I think a lot of people will be more ready with the technology and all. I think most of the work that we do, especially on as we said, meeting side calls and all, this can definitely be taken online. So in that sense, we just have to be better ready and embrace more technology while we focus on our line work. So that's my view on this.
Great. And I think actually, we have Trent online as well. Someone else trying to join back in as well, and I think he might have some questions to us as well. And just to really contribute to what's going on. I think it's been a wonderful sort of formative chat with you guys. So Trent, you've got. You're on mute, Trent. Yeah.
Someone give me $1 for every time I join or rejoin the conversation on mute. I'd be investing off my own base. Just one thing. I mean, I think Pine was talking about lessons learned and how they might, as an investor, be differently prepared as things go forward. I wonder whether either of the guys would just have some thoughts based on the experience of, because we've had a couple of questions around from I guess, people who are coming from the investee side of things. We don't know how long the COVID thing goes on. I think we've talked about the light at the end of a tunnel, maybe with vaccines and the like. But what should companies that are looking to investors like you guys to take an interest, what would you advise them now with the things to be doing such that they can ease your burden or make it easier for you to deal with them in the light of COVID, in the light of restricted DD opportunities, etc.? What should they be thinking about if they're going to come to one of you guys and say, we have a proposition?
I mean, I think one of the things that we have noticed, right? It's just as service providers to everybody, right? Even to some MPE&VCA members ourselves, and especially dealing with many of the Myanmar businesses and entrepreneurs, that there's now been a lot more willingness to do things remotely. Before, it was always like they had to meet me in person or meet the principals in person before they can actually share that information. Now everybody is aware of that you can't physically meet. So there's a lot more movement on and communication on emails and Zooms and stuff. So I think that has been fantastic. And with that, there has to come follow up with a bunch of documentation that needs to be done. So I think fundamentally things haven't changed. I think, you know, those guys who are better managers and better entrepreneurs who have always been prepared actually have these things in hand. So I think to me, in any case, fundamentals haven't changed. The way we look at things have changed. The way we sort of have been able to access the information has somewhat changed. So I think if anything, it highlights the better companies or the better run companies than it did before. In terms of, you know, we don't invest for a living, so I'm also curious to find out where the notion of anti-fragility is, right? Where, you know, are you guys, are investees been set up so that, you know, when this next pandemic happens or climate change happens, they are set up to pivot or to, you know, thrive under these uncertain conditions, right?
Yeah, I agree with Gotu, right? In that sense, really, the companies have to be, you know, for those who are looking to raise fund soon, I think they have to make sure that they have the system in place now. They have full disclosure on the financial statements, or even their control systems to be in place. So that will definitely make it a lot easier for the DD process, for investment decision-making process. So it will definitely, you know, fasten the process of fundraising for them.
For us, what we put a lot of emphasis when we look at opportunities or potential acquisition we can make, we put a particular focus on the product itself. We know we can operate well, but it's like buying a car that there's no engine in it. It's not very helpful. While if there's a good engine in it, then you know we can always repair the other parts. So it's really an emphasis that we're putting, and we feel if we make the acquisition of a good product, we will be able to set it up in a way that's going to become a good business that's going to contribute to the growth of the group.
Yeah, borrowing an expression from someone who sort of said, you know, we're not in the same boat, we're in the same storm. And depending on the boat that we're in and how we navigate that particular boat, it's you know, it's the way we come out of that storm, which I guess is true not only of COVID, but in life as a whole. And I think you know, to some of the attendees who are on the investee side, I think one danger that I feel in Myanmar sometimes is that there is a lot of lemming-like mentality or a sheep-like mentality that they follow things without actually saying this is really good for our business, right? So not just to say it because everybody else is doing it, we should do it too. I think you should do what is good for your business, what you're capable of doing, and most importantly is to know yourselves and your capabilities moving forward.
Maybe just one more comment to that, Tura, because I know you're in. You talk about the storm, and I know you're somewhere very cold. I've just been talking this morning with some friends in Europe who have a motto, and I guess I'm more used to it, and say, well, there's no such thing as bad weather, only bad clothing. And I guess you know, one thing I take away from our own investments in recent months is it can be a difficult time, but the portfolio companies and by extension then potential portfolio companies that step up and can show that they've responded, they've managed cash, they've taken steps, some of them difficult, to be resilient, then that says a lot to us as investors about what will happen in the future, in either the uncertain continuation of this current crisis or in the ones that come inevitably down the track.
Yeah. Great. I think, do we have any more questions? I think we have somebody who's arriving just now. That's impressive. They might be in a different time zone. They've lost track of time. I think, Juliet, are we okay for time? I guess we could
we can
call it a day.
10 more minutes if we prefer.
Okay, we'll keep chatting. And is there any more questions that are there? Everybody's very quiet. I guess, we've spoken a lot. No, I guess. I mean, Pine and Alan and Trent. I mean, I would like to invite you guys to make a sort of like a closing remark. Just you don't have to say anything. You can just say, it's been fun, it's been bad, been stuck in Young, it's been terrible. The weather's getting better. Anything, just so that we can have a little wrap up, and I'll try and finish it off at the end.
What I would say is that a lot of people say it, and then starts to walk the talk, but it's really a time of opportunity. Trying to mention about resilience, I think if we have a team of resilient people, and as you mentioned, and Aaron, on readiness, I think if you're really resilient and ready, I think that the opportunities are there to be seized, and people are a bit more disorganized might become interested to have some chats for being acquired, right? So it's really be ready at any time and seize the opportunity when it comes, and it's time for it.
Yeah.
As for me, I think I just want to say shortly that 2020 has been quite bad for almost everyone. So just hang in there. We're now in December, so it's almost over. And I've seen a post on Facebook saying that, I'll make sure that I'll see through the ending of the 2020, not just to welcome the 2021. I just can't wait to see 2020 go away. So we just all have hang in there, and I think this storm will be over soon.
Absolutely, I think I agree with both of you that the opportunity is continuous, and at least in PE we see things in 5-year chunks. The opportunity is continuous, and people are still looking, and there is still dry powder. The association will be launching its deal share platform in Q1, which will be another opportunity for companies looking to get exposure to all of our members and to potential investors. So yeah, I would agree. Hang in there. The opportunity continues, and 2021 will, I think, be a lot better. And again, thanks to all of you three guys and everyone for participating today.
Gentlemen, just before I let you three go, we've got some last-minute questions that are popping up here, and some are quite interesting. One says, and anybody can take it, right? Considering the impact of COVID, how has fundraising been affected? And following on from that, how does donors like development funds institutions support fundraising during and for COVID-19? Maybe should we just chip in on that one if anybody have got any ideas on that?
Sure. I think development finance institutions, they play a very key role in the development of the country. I think a number of the members of the MPE&VCA are also invested by the development finance institutions. So they are not exactly donors. I mean, they look for investment opportunities that have positive financial returns, but also what is good about them is they also have another side of the investment where they focus on the impacts, where they focus on the ESG, where they focus on the long-term sustainability. So I think they are huge sovereign funds, and not only they provide growth capital or even control deal, or they can, a lot of the development finance institutions are also in Myanmar as well. So I guess they also play a key role in helping develop the whole the private sector market. Also on the end that where they can take a bit more risk than some of the PEs like us. They can take on smaller deals, they can take on larger deals. So their role is more versatile, and I think they play a huge role in helping the economy back up and invest in the country.
I think there are two arms to this, right? There are the investment side and also those that give technical assistance. So those are, and all of these guys have technical assistance, and I think they help a great deal in terms of lifting the whole ecosystem up of potential investee companies, whether it's large or small, getting, making sure that, helping the entrepreneurs and small and growing businesses really get themselves ready for potential investment. I think the key challenge really, right, so where we are in this sort of equity investors, that is in MPE&VCA, is really for Myanmar people is to really appreciate the value of what a private equity venture capital investor brings. For most parts, we are not, you are not, I should say, right? You are not strategic investors as such. You don't have a product that you want to develop with them. You are really an investor that is it's investing, putting your money in the management of the company and their skills. Yeah.
What I would say about this question, for us, it's actually quite interesting, because there's been some funding that has been happening, and there's been a lot of hype around tech and ed tech, which is an area that is close to us. And for us, it actually forced us to reflect on what we do and where the world goes. So the money goes towards the future, and in order to capture some of these funds, we also need to be able to cater for the interest to where the money wants to go. As much as we want to stay close to what we're good at and be focused on our strategy, we also see that the world is changing. The digitalization, the tech has been taking an acceleration over the last year. And it also forces us to think, okay, how do we position our assets? How do we position our capabilities? How do we position our strategy in order to be relevant and capture the demand?
Yeah, I'd only add, not much. I agree with what Pang said before, and obviously Alan's world's a little bit different to ours, but I think the DFIs have been important in developing Frontier ASEAN, which is our focus, not just in Myanmar. I think in relation to COVID, maybe it has it's taken resources away a little bit from developing future funds, but we've also found our LP base, at least, to be very receptive to putting additional funds in to support our current portfolio and to follow up on that, so that there is an opportunity to support them as this pandemic unfolds with an uncertain time frame. So we've appreciated that from our LP group. And on one hand, got in the way. On the other hand, they've stepped up and responded, and it's positive in these markets.
Yeah. That's great. Yeah, I mean, for me, I guess we can close it up. This session. I think just for me, COVID has been this pandemic has been a horrible thing for everybody, right? For businesses, for people who have lost their well-being, as well as losses in families and friends, and it's been terrible, right? Hundreds of thousands of people dying. But I think one thing it sort of highlights that all these things will come to an end. And I think in the hard-nosed business sense, those that are better prepared will get through this faster and better, and will be able to, when the curve starts going up, they'll be able to benefit from the preparedness. I think. There's a question here. I was trying to stop, but there's an interesting one here. I think you guys should answer this because it's good. PEs in Myanmar seem to be focusing mainly on tech-based companies. How does climate change in the existential crisis now? How are Myanmar PE players eyeing climate change as a potential sector, especially after COVID now?
That's very interesting. And for PEs like us, that's not true. We don't focus on the tech company. In fact, we invest on a lot of companies that have very strong fundamentals, which of course will have to leverage on the technology side of it. But the main business is not really technology. Our investments includes financial services and manufacturing, so consumer-facing industries. And our latest investment in plastic recycling, it's actually trying to work towards, towards the green objectives. So we're trying to make sure, our investments are responsible, and also, they provide a positive impact on the environment side. So we are actually very excited about our latest investment in the PET recycling. And I think for a lot of the players here as well, I think climate change and environmental impacts are one of the key areas that they are careful about. So I think that's one of the key fundamental areas that a lot of PEs here will definitely be looking out for, and they wouldn't be investing too much in businesses that could have a lot of environmental damage. So I think that's my take on the question.
Likewise, I think we have a little bit of tech, but we're not tech focused. But I think aside from whether you look at or do deals that are in specifically climate responsive businesses, and I think I think Pang as well, and there is increasingly and happily a very strong ESG overlay on all of our deals. There is a specific ESDD component, and that isn't just about risk and compliance. It's about progressive elements that you can introduce to business that are both business valuable and make a contribution to improving the environment, sort of trivially around, say, energy efficiency, but you can take it as far as you want to say, how can we add value to a business through action steps out of our ESDD that address matters relevant to climate change and the broader SDGs. So it's not just about choosing a solar business or something. It's in every business there should be that overlay. And
yeah, I think the key is just not investing in tech for the sake of tech, right? It's what is practical, what is useful, and what is the fundamentals of the business remain. Yeah. All right, gentlemen, I'll let you go. So it's been a great pleasure doing this. This is my first time doing it virtually. I hope it wasn't too much of a disaster. I think Juliet was sent through a questionnaire and how we can do things better. I hope there will be some positive feedbacks on that. And I guess which just leads me to say I hope to do this in person and in real life and shake hands and grab a beer afterwards with you all soon. So thank you all for joining. I think it's been a fantastic. I've had a wonderful time anyway. So thank you, Pai, thank you, Alan, thank you, Trent, and thank you, Juliet and Peffer for inviting me.
thank you all.